but also talk about this idea of how worker wages actually go up. And is it something that happens because of a tax law, or is it something that happens just because of supply and demand and what's out there in the market?
I think it's because of supply and demand, but it's also because of bargaining power and the power that workers have to negotiate higher wages for themselves. So, and the rules around collective bargaining, the rules governing things like the minimum wage and overtime. And we've seen the Trump administration take aim at all those rules and all those protections. And so I don't think it's any surprise that that wages aren't going to keep up the way some pure economic model would show, because I think the recent decades have proven that there's something broken. The link between productivity, as Chris mentioned, the link between productivity and wages is broken. And that's exactly why, as many of the critics of the tax bill said before it passed, simply giving more cash to corporations that were already flush with cash, that were already seeing record high profits, was not going to translate into higher wages. And that's what we're seeing so far.
What would you like to see in a new tax bill? Is there something that could be on the plate that you would that you could be happy with given the current Congress?
Well, I think the main thing, well, I don't know about given the current Congress, but maybe we'll talk about next year. I mean, I think the main thing is, well, for the current Congress, let's not dig the hole deeper, right? They already added $2 trillion to the debt, right? And the deficit this year is going to be $200 billion higher than it would be. Next year, it's going to be $280 billion. And over 10 years, it's $2 trillion. And despite what Dr. Hassett says, the tax cut will not pay for itself. Tax cuts do not pay for themselves, and no one believes that, with the exception possibly of Dr. Hassett. But no one believes that. And this is important, not just abstractly. It's important because that's going to create pressure on Social Security, on Medicare and Medicaid. And I think workers understand that. American people understand that, is that when we give $2 trillion away to predominantly to people at the top and to corporations, they're going to pay for that in the end. So to answer your question, what I'd like to see is to roll back some of those tax cuts for people at the top.
Caroline and Eric, what would you like to see in phase 2 as we're hearing maybe cooking for tax reform?
So the tax bill has had a direct impact on the creation of 115,000 manufacturing jobs. I think it's hard to say to those 115,000 families, you have not benefited because of the tax bill. Think about going home every night to your family and having a job that you didn't have before, directly tied to this tax bill. So from my perspective, thinking about next versions of tax, a conversation around going back to an environment in which the manufacturing sector was losing 16,000 jobs in the first 5 months of 2016, not the great path. Instead of kind of looking at it from let's rein in, slow down, and hamper job development and wage growth, and putting more families in a position where they're able to pay for themselves and an $82,000 income as the average manufacturing worker, say to those families in the future, we want to do more of that, not less of that. Tax bill 2.0, 3.0, whatever this turns into, whose goal is to do more job creation for manufacturing sector, that should be the goal.
Caroline?
I would add we'd like to see permanency in some of the spaces. We obviously had to make choices because of revenue confines, that certain provisions were temporary. I think things like the pass-through, the small business provisions, making them permanent, seeing permanency in capital expensing, cost recovery space would be things we would advocate for.